Okay, hi everybody. Welcome to the next segment of our series, DCDS Alumni in Law. I'm really excited to welcome these women here today. It is an accident that we ended up having all women join us for our DCDS Alumni in Law call, but it's really exciting and great, and I'm thrilled to have you all here. So if you don't mind, we would love to just learn who you are. If you could introduce yourselves, say a little bit about your DCDS class year, your college, your law school, and where you're working now. Sarah, do you want to kick everybody off?
Yes. So I am Sarah Thomas, Annie's sister. I graduated from Country Day in 2009 with Annalise, who's also on the call with us today. And I went to the University of Michigan for undergrad and Wayne State University Law School. And graduated law school in 2019. And I practice civil rights law, actually with my mother, Deb Gordon, who started the firm about 30 years ago.
Thanks, Sarah.
Hi, I'm Chaitra Gowda. I graduated from Country Day in 2007. Went to school with at least Annie, Sarah, and Annalise. I then went to Michigan State University for undergrad, and I eventually moved out to Baltimore, Maryland to go to law school at University of Maryland. I'm currently working at a firm that kind of does a little bit of everything, and I focus on labor and employment.
I can go next. My name's Annalise. As Chaitra and Sarah mentioned, we went to Country Day together. I graduated also in 2009 and then went to University of Michigan as well. And after University of Michigan, I went straight to law school at Emory University in Atlanta. And then after Emory, I came back here to Detroit, where I work for a firm based here in Detroit called Bodman PLC, which is a full service corporate law firm where I practice largely, corporate mergers and acquisitions law, as well as healthcare regulatory work.
And I guess that makes me last. My name is Samantha Fitzpatrick. I actually graduated from Country Day in 2012. So as you guys were walking out the door in 2009, I was coming in. I attended Temple University for my first year of college. I then transferred to Lincoln University, which is in Southern Chester County, PA. It's the nation's first historically Black college. So if anyone's interested in HBCUs, I'm the one to talk to. After graduating from Lincoln, I went to Villanova for law school. I currently live and practice in Philadelphia. I work at a mid-sized firm called Blaster Greenberg, where we do corporate litigation, a lot of business focused work, and I focus primarily in bankruptcy and corporate litigation.
Awesome. Okay, great. Thank you, ladies. So let's jump into the first question. And as some of you know, the purpose of these recordings is to really understand what our DCDS alumni have done earlier in their lives and in their careers to get to where they are today. So what are 2 to 3 things that you guys feel that you did in college and or early in law school that were key to getting to where you are today? And what do you feel students should do to put themselves in the best position possible? For example, what are things that you recommend that students do outside of classes or internships to get an edge? So for example, like you read a certain publication, you joined the law frat, you reached out to someone at a law firm. We would love to just get a sense of some key things that you did that you feel like really helped you to get to where you are today. And I'll open it up to anyone.
I'll jump in. So I have, I guess, a little bit of a unique experience in that I did take 3 years off before actually starting law school. I just could not push myself to commit to going right after college. I just didn't feel like I was in the right mindset to make that decision. And it is a really big decision. It comes with financial consequences, and your time is really tied up, obviously, in the 3 years that you're attending the school. So it's a big commitment. And I would really suggest any Country Day students that are considering law school to at least also think about maybe taking a couple of years off before you do commit if you're not totally sold. And I know the other women on this call for sure, Lisi, and then maybe you guys too, went right to law school. I didn't catch that, but I'm majorly in favor of taking a couple of years off. I lived in Chicago, got a little bit of a different experience, and I came back to Detroit when I was feeling really ready to actually take on that commitment. And I think going into law school with a mindset of, I'm going to approach this like a job. I had already had a job for 3 years. So I knew what the working world was like, and I knew what working, 9 to 5 or more looked like. And I really did approach law school in that way. And I think that led to a lot of my success there. And that leads me to my second kind of practical point. College, I would not say was the time for me, at least, where I really felt like I set myself up for success in law school. As I said, I took the years off. I think I really set myself up for success in law school 1L year when, like I said, I kind of approached it like a job and made sure to get really strong grades, or as strong as I felt like I could. And that set me up for a lot of opportunities in terms of the job market. So people do say, it's important. Your grades are important 1L year. Which doesn't sound like the most fun advice, but it is really true. So I would really encourage any student considering law school to make sure you're really ready to go in and actually put the time in. And after 1L year, it does loosen up and it gets a little bit more fun. But that 1L year is time to really put your head down and do as well as you can academically.
Great, thanks.
I agree with Sarah on all of those points. I think the thing that I would add, I did go straight through. But I think I had kind of an extra level of maturity that I think some people struggle with. And it's really a question of that maturity, right? Can you put yourself in that mindset when you start law school that I'm an adult, this is professional school, it's not college, it's not high school, it is professional school. You are now entering the profession. I always wanted to be a professional. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And at the end of undergrad, I had a bachelor's in French, and it was like, I could go and study abroad, or I could take a gap year, or I could go straight through. And I made the decision to go straight through, to kind of hunker down and do that. And I think if you're of that mindset and that's what you really want. I also made the decision coming out of Country Day that I wanted to go to school out of state. So I wanted to be away from home, and that helped me kind of advance myself and mature myself in a way that I wouldn't have had to if I could come home on the weekends or spend every holiday at home, because I couldn't afford to come home every holiday. Mm-hmm. So sometimes I had to stay in Pennsylvania, or I had to stay with a friend, and you kind of push yourself to grow in that way. I would encourage students to get into student leadership in undergrad, and not just like, oh yeah, like I'm, president. Not that there's anything wrong with this, guys, but like I would encourage you not just like, oh yeah, I'm president of my frat. Like that's cool. But it's even more cool if you can sit on a board for the school. I did a lot of like recruitment exercises. So when the university was looking to hire new professors, I was the one who was asked to sit and to interview those professors. And that helps you get that professional experience, and you build that muscle. And then you've gotten that training. And I think that's what helps. And that's why some people need that gap year to get that professional training. But it is a profession, and that's the deal.
I love that, Samantha. And before we move on to whoever wants to answer this next, could you actually shed a little bit of light on how you positioned yourself to get those leadership positions on campus? Because I think that that's really smart. And I'm thinking of kids who are listening to this who might be like, okay, that's great, but like, how do I do that? So how did you do that?
It's a big part of it is talking to people, being open. It's very easy in that first year, especially at a bigger school. Like when I started at Temple, it was very easy to just kind of come in and fly under the radar. But making friends, being social, doing your best to kind of move about, and always carrying yourself, kind of developing your brand early, deciding early on what you want people to know or feel about you. I always knew that I wanted to be the friendly person. So I didn't want to fall into any cliques. I didn't want anyone to say like, oh, well, she always hangs out with so-and-so. So developing that brand early on and just letting people know I'm open, I'm here, I want to talk to you. And then when it came time to run for those positions, I'm running and I'm saying, look, guys, I've been here. I've been open. I've been wanting to talk. I listened. And these are the things you want done differently. Or these are the things that I think we should do to advance ourselves. And that gives you kind of that entree to people. But it's kind of biting the bullet early on and not being shy, which is hard because I'm a shy person naturally. But you got to kind of go for it and just get out there.
Wow. Okay. That's great advice. Does anyone else want to chime in on this question?
So kind of to piggyback off of Sarah, I also took 2 years off between undergrad and law school. I also wasn't ready for that kind of commitment because I knew how hard law school was. And then obviously being a lawyer is fun and as exciting as it is grueling days, and I didn't know if I could commit to it. I was fortunate enough that my dad's actually a lawyer in Michigan, so I was able to work with him and kind of get an idea, which actually Annalise also interned with him
Yes.
at one point. Really funny. And it was great insight, but it was great insight in the sense that it gave me an idea of, okay, I might actually be interested in this. However, at the same time, my dad does a very niche type of law, and I wouldn't say it wholly prepared me for law school because I think law school classes really focus more on the litigation style. So I think when students are looking for opportunities to get some insight as to how law school will go and, being a lawyer, I would definitely emphasize that looking at litigation focused law firms because it's a lot of reading and writing, which you have to do in law school, I think, and maybe others will disagree, but everything else I think will come with time. And then kind of to go off of Samantha, like I also didn't really, undergrad was not the time for me to focus and, be prepared for law school, but Country Day kind of prepared me in the sense to, you're really well connected at Country Day, whether, it's parents, friends, whoever it is. And Country Day really tried to establish making friends and staying connected with people. And I felt like I took that on with college and law school. And even now at work, I like to network. I like to talk to people. And my dad always said, and Country Day kind of said it too, like, always be kind. You never know when someone will need your help or you need someone else's help. And the more kindness you put out, the better possibilities of having opportunities come your way. So those were probably my two biggest points.
I think that's great, Chaitra. And I want to reference Aaron Hodari said the exact same thing on the alumni call in finance a couple weeks ago. He said, people want to work with kind people. And you've pointed that out. Samantha's pointed that out. And I think it's really key. To be kind in work does not mean that you are not good at your job. It actually means that you are really good at your job and you know how to navigate.
And you can work with people. It's easy to teach anyone anything if they have the work ethic to do that. But if you're not kind and you're not someone people want to get along with, then it makes everything a lot more difficult.
Yeah. Great. Annalise, anything to add?
Sure, yes. So first of all, I think everyone made excellent points and I can agree with a lot of them. Like Samantha said, I too studied languages in undergrad at Michigan, Spanish and Chinese, and thought to myself, well, okay, what am I going to do with that? And lo and behold, I went to law school. And so I actually was not certain that I really wanted to go to law school and that I really wanted to be an attorney, but I knew that I liked learning and that I wanted to have, some sort of secondary degree and to continue to learn more and to kind of figure out what it is that exactly I wanted to do in life. And even when I went to law school, I said, I will not work at a law firm. I'm just going to get a law degree and see where it takes me. And lo and behold, I have worked at a law firm ever since. So I guess never say never, but it has been honestly a great experience. And I ended up liking law school, I think, as much as one can like law school, because like everyone already said, it definitely is a lot of work and you have to be willing to put in the work because, that first year especially does really reflect on, the opportunities that you'll have going forward. But I think that two things that were really important to me and helped to build my career is one, I was lucky to have so many connections and really from my days here at Country Day. So as Chaitra mentioned, in undergrad at Michigan, I was able to work with her dad, who's an immigration attorney, and that was a field that was of interest of mine. So it was interesting to see that early on before I went to law school. And then after my first year of law school, I was able to work with Annie and Sarah's mom. And so I was able to, see into that area of the law, civil rights, and then, ultimately settle on something completely different than both of those areas. But it goes to show that it is helpful to get that experience to learn maybe what you like or what you don't like. And then I think another thing that was extremely helpful to me in law school that hasn't been touched on quite yet, but was that Emory offered a lot of externships with different companies in the Atlanta area. And so I was able to do 2 externships and get credit for it while I was in law school at Emory. And so I worked for a rolled aluminum manufacturing company, which doesn't sound that interesting, but they do a lot of interesting stuff from a corporate legal perspective. And that's what really illustrated to me, wow, I really like working with companies and the legal issues that presents. And then I was also able to work with American Cancer Society, which is familiar to everybody, I'm sure, and really get a sense of, what work a nonprofit healthcare organization of that nature is doing and what legal issues they face. And honestly, in my practice today, I, work with a lot of corporations, a lot of manufacturing corporations, especially in the automotive realm here in Detroit. And I continue to work with, nonprofit healthcare and research organizations and things like that. So it was definitely a good starting point to show me, hey, I really like these things, and to, give me a skill set that kind of was a springboard to, a career in those areas.
I love it. Okay, these were all awesome answers, and I feel like if I stop the call now, we would get great info. So thank you. All right. So Annalise, this is actually, my next question is a good transition from what you were just talking about. So we'll start with undergrad. If you had a legal internship in undergrad, how did you go about getting that internship and truly, like, let's get into weeds. I want to know exactly what you did. And then let's transition to law school. So what is a typical internship experience like in law school, and how did you get that internship?
Yeah, I can start with that question as well. So I think it really dovetails on what I was discussing earlier, because I think connections are really important, and that, goes back to what everyone else was saying, that the more you can maintain your relationships, the more you can be kind to others, be out there in the community, the more opportunities that will present yourself. And really, I would say that's how I ended up getting, the experience that I got in undergrad, working with Chaitra's dad, the experience I got, later in law school, and even the summer that I worked with Sarah and Annie's mom, I was also able to work with a company called TriMass Corporation here in Bloomfield Hills, and they're a diversified manufacturing company that does like a lot of bolt-on acquisitions. So it was good for experience from an M&A perspective, and really I got that because I saw it online, but then I figured out who worked there, finagled mutual connections, and then worked those mutual connections from there, which I think was really beneficial, because it sets you apart from just finding the job online and just simply, applying to the job online. People are human in nature, and they want to feel a connection to you as well. And I think that goes a long way to getting your foot in the door, and then getting your resume reviewed. And then, ultimately, of course, you have to, have the skill set for and prerequisites for the job, but it's a good first step. So I would say that was extremely helpful. And then ultimately, with the job I'm at now, which I've been working at since law school, again, that was, something I found online. Oh, okay, this firm looks great, etc. And then kind of backed into, wow, okay, we have a family friend that works there, and, again, worked that angle. So I think that's something that was definitely beneficial for setting me up in my career.
Great. Thanks, Annalise.
Well, I'll say I didn't have any legal externships in undergrad at all. I was on student government my sophomore rolling into my junior year. So that summer I stayed on campus all summer because we were planning and organizing for the coming year. And then the following summer I studied abroad. So I encourage everyone to take advantage of that opportunity, because once you get to law school, your time is not your own. And so you will not be traveling much. Yeah, you may take a little trip here or there, but you will not be traveling much. So take advantage of the opportunities in undergrad to kind of study abroad, to explore and have that good time. Once I got to law school, what we've said about your grades being the absolute most important thing is totally true. And it can make or break what happens in your first summer, and your first summer makes or breaks what happens in your second summer, and your second summer either sets you up or leaves you stranded going into your post-grad life. I ended up kind of in an interesting situation. So I am not the first lawyer in my family. I'm a first generation, but not the first lawyer. My brother Thomas is a Country Day grad of 96, I think
so.
And a Villanova Law grad of 2004. So he lives and works in the city. He runs his own firm. So I have been around a law firm without doing any of the work. And coming out of my first summer, I was determined not to go and work for him. So I wanted to go back to Detroit. I applied a few places. You look online, you work with your career strategy office, but if you are studying outside of the market that you want to work in, so for example, if you're in law school in Michigan and you want to work in New York and you are not in the top 10% of your class academically, you are going to have to work a lot harder. You're going to have to beat the pavement. You're going to have to look around, and there'll be a lot more of like sending your resume out in terms of getting into the nitty gritty of how it goes down, right? If you don't know someone, if you don't have a connection where you want to be, you'll have to reach out to people and kind of hope that you can make it happen that way for your first summer. My first summer, I worked at a small like tax collection firm out in the suburbs of Philadelphia. I also split the summer. So I did the second half of the summer with a judge that was in family court because family law was an interest of mine. And the judge was gracious enough to let me split. So I got to do like 6 or 8 weeks with her and then 6 or 8 weeks at the firm. And I was paid for the firm work. You will not be paid if you are interning for a judge. So keep that in mind. My second summer, I went to some diversity events, some networking events, met some people, and was offered an opportunity to join the Philadelphia District Attorney's Office. So I did that, and I had that secured. You actually start working on your second summer very early in your second year of law school. So basically, right when you come back that fall, they're asking, about on-campus interviews, and that's why those first-year grades are so important because that's all you got. You've got nothing else. They take those first-year grades, your first fall back, so your 2L fall. They're taking those grades and they're pushing you to apply to places. I secured that internship with the Philadelphia DA's office by February of my 2L year. And that was my 2L summer. And then coming out of law school, I ended up clerking for a judge on the appellate court here in Pennsylvania. Appellate clerkships are better than trial court clerkships. They won't tell you that until you get to law school. I'm telling you now, it's pre-game. Appellate clerkships are considered to be a higher rank because the higher the court, the higher the standard. And so the higher the respect in the profession for the work.
Great, thank you. So helpful. Wait, Sam, before we move on, I have a quick question. You mentioned, your grades are all you have when you're applying to these internships after your first year. When someone is applying to college, they have also like a whole resume of like different activities that show their leadership and things like that. And anyone can answer this too. Do firms like care about your other activities? Is that a thing, or is it really just grades?
Depends on the firm and the size, but go ahead, Annalise.
So I'm on a recruiting committee actually at Badman, and I do a lot of the interviews during recruiting season. And I would say, as terrible as it does sound, you're not going to get through the door without the grades. And we do pretty much set a threshold of we accept this GPA or higher, and kind of that's how we weed out all the resumes, because for Detroit, Badman is considered, air quotes necessary, a big law firm. So we do tend to get a lot of resumes locally here. And so it is just a way to weed through them in a sense. And I think it's just seen as critically important because it shows, your understanding of the law and your ability to, like everyone else said, kind of like hunker down and really focus and analyze and get things done. And so that is really a first step screening process. But then I would say secondary to that, once you're through the door, we're 100% looking at those other things, because then it's like, well, how does it set you apart from, whoever else comes through the door? So I think even when I interviewed and when I interview others, I'm definitely looking for, okay, what's that practical experience? Do you have a particular interest in a certain area of the law? And another huge thing that we're really looking for, given that we are a local Detroit firm, is do you, are you going to stay here? Things like that. Are you committed to the area? Because another thing that I meant to touch on earlier, but when we were talking about connections and everything, I mean, a big part of the legal practice that doesn't meet the eye when you're maybe thinking of a career in the law is that you need to have clients, right? So otherwise you will not be practicing law. So a lot of that comes from networking and, figuring out, okay, what kind of clients do I want to represent? What do I, want that to look like? Who do I connect with? What areas of the law do I like practicing? And then, really going out there and making that happen and working those connections so that you consistently, can practice and do the things that you truly enjoy every day and in representing those clients. So we look for that too. That's huge. Is someone personable? Do we think that they would, really put themselves out there as needed and things like that? So
Sure, that makes sense. Sarah, Chaitra, do you want to weigh in on the internship situation in law school or in undergrad?
Sure. So I, again, didn't do anything legally related in undergrad, but in law school, and I think most law schools, but I will only speak for my own law school at University of Maryland, they really do have a lot of different, departments or programs to help you navigate this entire during summer, what you're supposed to do. Because I think if you didn't see the theme, your summers in law school are very, very important. It is not like undergrad. It is not like high school where you get to go on trips with the family and take vacations. I mean, you can do that. I don't know how that will bode for you in the future, but you really have to apply for jobs that are internships, or they call them your, summer associate positions. And those are the things that really are the guiding steps for your next moves after you graduate. But my school had, several people who would help us with getting internships, externships, and all of that. But again, you really got to put your best foot forward. And then kind of going back to my earlier point, and you got to get, go out of your comfort zone and join associations, especially in law school. You get a lot of these memberships for free because you're a law student, or for very nominal, annual fees, and meet a lot of people. And you can meet lawyers because, as a lawyer, I'm a member of a lot of associations, or sitting on the board of several of these associations where we have specific events for law students, or we have events where law school students are also welcome, and you interact with them. And again, obviously you meet the grades, but we are also always looking for new candidates to one day work with us. So if I get along with someone, I'm going to make note of that person. And I might even say, here's my email, stay in touch with me. If you need any help with anything, let me know. And then if I see their progression, I might reach out once they've graduated, once they've had a little bit more experience, whatever it may be, and say, you could be a great fit for our law firm if you're interested, and let's have a talk. And kind of to piggyback off of that, as Country Day students, we are very privileged because your network is insane of, current students and parents, but also alumni. I wouldn't doubt that if you reached out to any alumni and just said, hey, I'm a student right now, I see you in the directory, graduated 5 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, I know anyone would help. I mean, obviously time is of essence and everyone has limited time, but I think the Country Day community makes time for the Country Day community.
Definitely.
So I encourage students to reach out, again, go out of your comfort zone, because they can help you, whether it's like looking at your resume or giving you advice on what you should do, but also you've now made a connection that's a lot more, it's a lot stronger than just the Country Day alumni relationship.
Yeah, I love that, Chaitra. I love that answer about the Country Day alumni.
I know.
It is so true. And that's why we're doing this call. And you can, for anyone watching, you can reach out to any person on this call and they're happy to talk to you. Sarah, if you don't mind, I'm going to jump to another question just because I want to be conscious of everyone's time. if you guys could just now chat about what you do day to day, kind of some of the tasks that you have to complete, what you're doing, if you're going to court, if you're on Zoom court, if you want to mention how you got your current job, that's fine. But yeah, I would just love to hear, day to day, like what you guys are up to each day. Sarah, you want to kick it off?
Sure. So as I said in the beginning of the call, I work for a civil rights firm, which is a really cool job, in my opinion, because you are, the mission of our firm is to protect people's rights. And, on a basic level, those are constitutional rights, freedom of speech, your right to vote, things like that. But we also protect people's civil rights. So people do have rights in the workplace and beyond. They have, a right to be treated equally and the same way as people of, different races, different ages, different genders, things like that. And our civil rights have formed because of what people have done, on the ground. So the civil rights movement led to, expansion of laws for African-American people, and, women have done a lot in this field too. So people really do have influence on the laws that ultimately, are passed by our legislature and are now, in effect to protect our rights. So it's a cool job, I think. So day to day, so we do a lot of litigation. So our firm is a litigation firm. So we are doing what you might think of as kind of like a typical lawyer. We are going into court and arguing motions in front of a judge who's then making a ruling. We are doing jury trials. They unfortunately had to pause for a little bit because of COVID, but that is kind of a huge bulk of our practice. Although I will say, a lot of cases do now settle outside of court, which is a little bit of a different issue. But if you're somebody who sees yourself as, wanting to be in front of a judge and arguing motions and being in front of a jury and making an opening statement, then litigation, I think, is kind of the path that you might want to go down. Obviously, we're not doing these things every day. The day-to-day work is probably a lot more similar to, a regular desk job, so to speak. I mean, I'm here in the office now, obviously. I also have to answer emails and field incoming calls from other opposing counsel or potential clients who are seeing if they want to have a case. So spend a lot of time on the phone. We are a little bit more of an interesting firm in the way that we don't have a ton of meetings, which I actually think is really nice. It's myself, obviously my mom, who's the partner, and then 2 other young attorneys. So we're a small firm. If that's, an atmosphere that you can see yourself in, where it's a lot probably more casual and comfortable than maybe a true big firm feel, although I don't know for sure, I can't speak on that. But, we're constantly popping into each other's offices and having casual conversation about things and catching up. And not to say that doesn't happen at a big firm, it absolutely does, but it's just a little bit of a different dynamic, a little more intimate in a small firm. Mm-hmm. So if you're someone that gravitates, towards close connections, not as many people, a small firm could be a good option for you.
Thanks, Sarah.
I'm going to follow Sarah. I work at a firm called Baker Donaldson, and I focus on labor employment, like I said, and kind of on the inverse of what Sarah does. A lot of our clients are companies or schools where we're, again, working on cases dealing with workplace discrimination, but also other things such as, non-compete, which is basically, if a company has an employee that leaves and goes to another company, how does that work? Do they get to take the information they have, things like that? And I used to do a lot more litigation the past couple of years, and I'm now transitioned to a place where I can do a little less court, because I was truly in court almost every other day or dealing with a court deadline, and it's a lot, but that's really where I focus on. And I'm at a firm that has probably 20 or 22 offices around the Southeast corridor. So it's definitely a bigger firm. Weirdly enough, they consider themselves a mid-sized firm for the country, but
wow.
The office itself, like, I'm based in the Baltimore office. I come to the office every day, so I definitely have the ability to make these connections. I am someone who likes coming to the office for the interaction. So I'm someone who, when I want to take a break, I'm taking laps and like talking to anyone who will listen to me. and saying I can no longer sit at my desk. But as Sarah pointed out, it's a pretty big firm. So I'm constantly getting emails from other associates or partners at other offices that I've never met, couldn't tell you how they look, but everyone is kind. But again, everyone has to be kind because we're all helping each other do some work. So in that sense, that's kind of my job. In terms of every day, I'm in a little bit more of a senior role. So I manage a lot of the cases and can do a lot of the groundwork, talk with clients, meet with clients, figure out what we need to do. And then I work with younger associates to kind of delegate some of the work. And then I will get work back that I get to review, do my revisions to it, and then speak with the partner and the client about what we want to do next.
Great.
That was the question.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, I'm happy to go next. My job is a bit more similar to Chaitra's, I'd say. So I have never seen the inside of a courtroom, and I will never see the inside of a courtroom unless something goes awry. I'm just busy pushing paper from my desk. So, but it's a little bit more exciting than that sounds. So largely my practice is focused on mergers and acquisitions, which means at a basic level, I'm helping clients buy or sell companies, and we represent both buyers and sellers of, companies in a variety of industries, whether it's, like I mentioned earlier, automotive or manufacturing, maybe it's a food business, maybe it's a, healthcare organization, maybe it's a physician practice group, etc. It can look, different from transaction to transaction. And that's what I find most interesting about my job, is because working with different companies and different clients and learning about different businesses and the legal issues that face those businesses adds, a little layer of variety to my day to day. And then I also practice health in the healthcare space. And so that's more of, I would say, the work I do there is more of in a general counsel capacity for clients, whether it's helping physician practice groups just put together contracts that they need for day-to-day work, or whether it's work with a nonprofit research organization. I do a lot of that work, which is a little interesting niche area of my practice, like a life sciences law practice, where I work with clients that, conduct clinical trials and work in helping to negotiate the clinical trial agreements or any government funding that we're receiving to conduct the trials, work with various institutions, nationwide and internationally, that are participating in conducting these cancer research trials and things like that. And so it's definitely an interesting area of the law. And, you have to think about the patient's rights, and, we work with pharmaceutical companies who are providing the drugs for free, and you have to think about the intellectual property concerns and things of that nature that tie into all of that. But that's pretty much what I'm up to on a day-to-day basis. And it is a bigger law firm. Gosh, so I work from home on a consistent basis now, but typically my office would be in Ford Field downtown, and that's our main office here in Detroit. But we also have, a variety of satellite offices, in Ann Arbor, Grand Rapids, Troy, things like that. So probably, I don't even know, 150 to 200 attorneys or so, something like that. So there's definitely some people, get to know better, others that you maybe don't know very much at all. So it is a little bit of a different feel in that sense. But what is nice about it is, you do have the practice areas that you practice in, and, the close relationships you'll form with the people you work with there. And, you do get opportunities, especially in the M&A space, I work with, attorneys in several other areas of our law firm if there's issues of that nature related to the deal. If it's, a real estate issue, an environmental issue, an employment issue, something like that, you get the opportunity to, cross mingle with other practice areas and other people at the firm that way.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thanks, Annalise. Sam, you want to wrap us up? Yeah.
Sure, and I'll be pretty quick. So I'm actually the Goldilocks of the group. I get a little bit of everything.
Love it.
I split my time between corporate litigation and bankruptcy work. Bankruptcy is more of the kind of, it's not M&A, but it touches some of that. So it's more kind of sophisticated work, if you will, than straight up litigation. Straight up litigation is, here's the information I have, here's the complaint, here's what you need to know, give me your information and let's go to court. So I do some of that work. I do some discovery exchanges, which is answering interrogatories and, producing documents, things like that. I have the privilege of working at a mid-sized firm and I'm considered, I think, a first-year associate still, but because I have some legal experience, because I clerked, because I worked at another firm, I get the opportunity to interact with my clients directly. I get the opportunity to interface and help the partners make more decisions than most junior associates. I also, with the bankruptcy stuff, it's very limited, but you are exposed to those other groups. So I would work with someone like an Annalise if I'm trying to sell something for my client, if my client needs to sell something at the tail end of their bankruptcy. So those kinds of things happen and you develop those relationships. My firm is mid-sized with offices in Philadelphia, all across New Jersey, New York, and in Florida, but they worked really hard to maintain kind of a small firm feel. So we do have quite a few meetings, but it's nice because you get to interact with people, you get that face time, and building up your network internally helps develop mentoring opportunities, which are very important. And because we're getting off this call, I don't have time to lecture on it, but mentoring is important. Get a mentor, listen to your mentors, and that'll carry you through, honestly.
That's huge. Yes, I agree with that.
Well, you guys, this has been amazing. Thank you so much. I wish we could, keep chatting. Hopefully maybe we can do part 2 sometime. But I truly appreciate all of your time. You are all wonderful and super smart. And thank you for being on. And like I said, is it okay for students to reach out to you if they have any questions or just want to learn more about what you do?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you again. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your Friday. Talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks for
Bye,
having me.
guys.
Thanks, Annie. Bye, guys.